It's a pleasure to be with you today, and thanks to everyone who's joined us for today's webcast. We're going to talk a lot about personalization today, but before I do that, I just want to take a minute for all of us to walk a mile in our customers' shoes, because no matter what all of us do in our professional lives, we're all consumers too. And I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that we all have some pretty high expectations for how we want brands to engage with us. And that's easier said than done because our behavior continues to evolve. We know that all of us are getting more and more comfortable using digital devices. And in fact, during the pandemic, even people who were not digital natives started to embrace digital channels as a lifeline to connect not only with their friends and families, but with brands as well. Now, as our behavior evolves, we send some pretty contradictory signals because on one hand, we want those digital experiences to be immersive. We want them to just blend in with the rest of our lives. But at the same time, we want to be in control. We want to dictate how a brand will engage with us, and we want to especially control the way our data might get used by that brand or anyone the brand partners with. We also like to try new things because we're humans and we're naturally curious. But as we try new things, we become even more skeptical of information that we see on a brand's website. The pandemic also affects us in other ways. It creates some measurable concern among consumers because not only are we worried about our own health and the health of our loved ones, we're concerned about our financial well-being. And that impacts how a person might want to connect to a brand. Those who are really concerned about both their health and their finances are not going to be open to personalization or offers from a brand. Those who perhaps are worried about their health but not so worried about their finances will be the ones that will be wanting to get back to normal as soon as possible. So they're at the other end of the spectrum. And then there are those who are perhaps okay from a health perspective, but worried about their financial well-being. And those are going to be the people looking for a discount. And then there are still others where they are okay from a money perspective, but they're still concerned about their health for whatever reason. And they're going to want to extend that pandemic period where they cocoon at home. And all of those things will greatly impact the way people engage, and therefore it needs to be something that brands are cognizant of when they decide how to engage with those people. And the best advice I could give somebody is to be customer obsessed. And I would have said that even before the pandemic. And I know as those words leave my mouth, they sound a bit like a buzzword coming from a Forrester analyst. But let me tell you what I mean by customer obsession. I mean being led by your customers and letting customer behavior help you make better business decisions. And then being led by those insights that will drive the business, not data, but those customer-led insights that will help you drive the business forward. You'll also need to get a bit faster so that you can adapt quicker to change. And you'll need to connect the dots across the organization so the customer sees a consistent view, no matter who from the company that person might interact with. Now, to become customer obsessed, you'll need to make a number of investments. You'll need to think about your strategy, your structure, your culture, your people, your processes. But technology also plays a pretty critical role. So that's why we're going to talk about technology and the investments you can make there in order to become more customer obsessed when you're personalizing customer experiences. So how does customer obsession apply to personalization? Well, at a very high level, you're simply trying to provide better interactive experiences for your customers. You're trying to frame or guide or extend those interactions they have with you based on that understanding you have from their data and their behavior. But no one person or no one part of the company is going to own personalization, and that makes it very difficult. Whether it's marketing, sales, or service, there might be some competing goals at play and lots of different technology investments that you need to make in different parts of the organization. Because what's going to be critical is aligning your strategy across those different parts of the company and those different owners of different aspects of the customer experience so that your technology investments work together to deliver that more holistic, personalized experience for your customers. And as you're making those investments, it's important, if you want to really become customer-led and insights-driven, that you listen to what your customers are saying, that you lead in your market or in your space by applying what you learn from your customers to your strategy so that you can connect the dots across the organization and then continuously optimize and improve as your strategy evolves. You should think of those technology investments in three big categories. One is customer understanding. And if you're in marketing, it's time to really start thinking about customer data as more than a database. Think of it as your lifeline to understanding customers. And if you're in IT, please make it your job to work with those marketers to give them the tools that they need that they can use to understand customers better. Then we move on to number two, brand strategy. And many people think of brand strategy as something that you think about. It's an idea. But there are technologies to underpin your brand strategy to help the organization collaborate better, to ideate, and then turn those ideas into an operational strategy. It's also where you'll find your content development tools and your measurement tools that will help you not only deliver a good experience, but continue to optimize that experience over time as you measure and learn what's working and what's not. And then finally, we get to brand experiences, number three. That's a technology category that most marketers know well. They've invested heavily in digital marketing tools. But now it's time for marketing to connect those tools to the technology that other parts of the organization are using to engage with customers so that we can create that more holistic brand experience. And if you're going to make those investments, you probably will think about them in some form of architecture. And here's just an example of what that might look like. I'll just try to call out a few important points for you here. First, you're going to need an infrastructure which is based on customer trust and privacy and preferences so that you can recognize customers and what they expect from you as a brand. You'll then need to connect your data and your content and your automation tools so that you can deliver the experiences that your customers expect, not just where digital marketing is concerned, but where you connect digital marketing to your human assisted channels and the services that you provide or the transactional channels that you have in your particular business. And then you're going to want to close the loop. So if you look at this diagram closely, you'll see we begin and end with infrastructure, because so also in that infrastructure piece is that measurement that I talked about, which will be critical to your brand strategy. Now, if you do all of that, you still need to think about it from the customer perspective. And you will still execute campaigns because your outbound campaigns will remain important as a way for you to acquire customers. But you need to think about how those campaigns align with the inbound behavior of your customers and what they expect to see when they come to you, so that your campaigns become more relevant as your inbound personalization becomes more contextually relevant to the customer need. And then for a subset of your customers, how many will depend on your business, but for a subset of your customers that you know incredibly well, you're going to want to anticipate their needs and you're going to want to personalize experiences for them in the moment. Now, when people look at this diagram, they tend to think of it as a maturity model and that I'm telling you your campaigns are bad and you need to ditch them in favor of contextually relevant marketing or moments-based marketing. In reality, your technology ecosystem in marketing aligned with customer experience investments, needs to accommodate campaigns, contextually relevant responses, and those more anticipatory experiences that you'll deliver. One of the hardest things that I deal with when talking to marketers is helping them see beyond what they do today for acquisition to focus on the rest of the customer lifecycle. Marketers are really good when it comes to marketing and advertising to get someone to click a button and purchase something. They're not so good at working with the rest of the organization to understand what happens when a customer needs service or support, or when they use a product and have questions, or when they want to re-engage with the brand. And I think that marketers could do themselves a great service if they just work with the rest of the organization to try to connect those particular dots. Now, as you do that, and as you think about the second half of the customer life cycle, you need to also be aware that there are many interactions that occur there. People may buy differently every time, and there might be multiple instances where they purchase the same product again or a different product in the second half of the customer life cycle. For example, I buy some consumable products from a consumer goods manufacturer, and sometimes I buy from them, sometimes I buy their products from Amazon. And if I buy their products from Amazon, the marketing team then treat me like a lapsed customer that they're trying to win back. And the thing that's frustrating about that is I recycle the packaging for those products with that manufacturer. So no matter where I buy the product, they know in that second half of the customer life cycle that I'm recycling. And if they could just get that data from that part of the organization, they could provide me a better experience from a marketing perspective. And that's what we mean by the right-hand side of this picture. As we move forward, we know business models have changed. We used to just buy things from retailers or on occasion directly from a manufacturer. Now marketplaces have become an important part of how we buy, and brands need to take that into consideration. And of course, lots of things that affect us as humans from an emotional perspective. We talked earlier about the pandemic and how that will create some values-based buyers that might be looking at you as a company and how you are responding to the pandemic. It also creates those people that might be looking for a discount. And knowing how to market to those folks versus always trying to put a new offer in front of people who want to try out something new is a fine balancing act that you'll need to walk. The second biggest problem that marketers have, I think, is in conflating personalization with the overall customer experience and looking at some of those personalization tactics as the end all of the customer experience, when in fact the customer using and enjoying the product is more important as a part of the customer experience than that purchase journey up front. And we saw that during the pandemic, where a lot of brands were continuing to promote products or make offers when the customers were coming to the website to get information like store opening hours or social distancing policies, or whether or not you were offering curbside pickup. So again, it's a fine balance here, but we need to understand that it's not all about those personalization tactics. A lot of mistakes that marketers make are in overusing those tactics, putting my name in an email repeatedly, or picking up on what I'm browsing on the website so that you can target and retarget me across all of my devices or across different social media properties. That can get really annoying for the customer, and it can become exhausting for the marketer to try to keep up with all of that data. I think this is really what my cohorts at Gartner had in mind when they predicted that soon we'll see 80% of marketers abandon personalization. They don't mean we'll abandon delivering better experiences. They mean that we'll abandon some of these tactics that are so difficult for both the brand and the customer in many cases. It is important, of course, to stick with it. And that's why I don't think brands will abandon the experiential parts of personalization. They need to deliver an experience, and that's what will differentiate the brand. We know that nearly 2/3 of customers will tune out if they get a bad experience, but by contrast, 3/4 will actually recommend the brand, or in some cases pay more for a good or a service if they get a really good experience from that brand. So if I sum up all of that, I know we've talked about a lot. We've talked about the evolving customer obsession, technology investments, that fine line with personalization between what the business needs to accomplish and what you need to deliver for the customer. But if I sum all of that up, I would come back to the 3 points I mentioned earlier. First, customer understanding. Invest in data and analytics so that you can understand what your customers want and what your customers need, so that you can be customer-led in your decision-making. Number 2, your brand strategy. Think about that as the place where you make investments in content that will be relevant to your customers based on that understanding. Think of it as the place where you measure so that you can continuously optimize what you're doing with individual customers and across your brand as a whole. And then finally, brand experience. Connect the dots, orchestrate a holistic experience for your customers. Make sure that marketing is aligned with sales and service and other operational functions so that what the customer sees is your brand, not those separate channels or separate channel tactics. And if you can do all of that, I think you'll be on your way to aligning your strategy and your technology so that you can deliver personalization in a way that will be welcome to your customers and they'll enjoy engaging with you as a brand.